I'm Marie Moody. I'm the founder and president of Stella and Chewy's. Stella and Chewy's is a raw, frozen, and freeze-dried company. So we have food, for example, that's frozen that goes in a freezer. And then what we did is something a bit unique in this industry. We took it a step further and we freeze-dry the same diet. So this is the exact same that's in the freezer, only this is shelf-stable. And freeze-drying takes the moisture out while the food is still frozen, so the food is still raw, all the nutrients are still, and not impacted by heat or anything like that.
Now, raw food is getting really popular both for people and for dogs as well. It's very controversial. Could you say something about why raw is so good for dogs and why has it been ignored for such a long period of time?
You know, it actually really hasn't been ignored. There's always been like sort of a subculture of raw food feeders, and they tend to be breeders and some of the very high-end expensive dogs. So it's always been there, and if you think about how dogs ate in the wild, it wouldn't have been anything cooked. So that's why there's this emphasis on a raw diet. The evidence is showing that it more simulates how they would have eaten in the wild, and therefore it's more species appropriate. The dog is able to assimilate the food more simply and more easily, and the nutrients, it's more bioavailable for them. So we're seeing great results.
So we have like dogs that are very domesticated, and yet we want them to eat like they were in the wild.
It's hard to imagine your Maltese out hunting, and I understand that, but even still, it's not been that long since we've domesticated them in an evolutionary sense. So their insides are really more closely resembling a wolf or a fox, even still today, even though they look like a Maltese or a poodle. That's really the exterior and not the interior. So the raw foods, both for people and for pets, is gaining a lot of traction more in a mainstream way now. So what we're seeing now is these raw diets becoming more prolific, at the pet stores and things like that. And there has, you're right to mention that there's been some controversy around them. And the controversy really has centered upon the food safety and them being complete and balanced diets.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Okay.
We've got your stuff right here. And we're looking at, I'm looking at Dandy Lamb Dinner or
Duck Duck Goose, Stella Super Beef, Surf and Turf, and chicken, and then the Dandy Lamb.
Okay, now it says keep frozen.
Right.
Okay, so you take this out, and I assume you let it defrost?
Yes, you do. You according to how many pounds your dog is, they generally say if you're going to do, a lot of people don't do just a raw diet. A lot of people will feed this in lieu of a can and even potentially put it on top of the kibble, which is completely fine. We always say that some raw is better than no raw. It's a huge commitment really to go to an all raw diet.
So what's in here aside from the different meats?
Well, this is basically, it's very similar to the prey model. So we've got 95% meats, like muscle meats, organ meats, and then very finely ground bone, the raw bone. So that's a big component of this as well, because in the wild that's what the animals would eat. And then the fruits and vegetables are left at about 5%, because typically that's what would be left in the prey stomach, the contents.
Okay. So how do pet owners find, when their dog owner gives them raw for the first time, what happens? Is there an adjustment period?
It really depends. We see both. We see some dogs that have to go through a longer transition period where it's like, it would be the case if you were switching that dog to any other sort of food where it's, you've got to transition in. So it's like you might start and do it over a 10-day period, adding just a little bit more of the new food. On the other hand, we have a lot of dogs, especially with the freeze-dried, that there's no transition period for. And again, we recommend, if you are happy with your current way of feeding your dog, to augment it with raw. You don't have to completely switch. You can add a few patties to each meal, and that's an easy way to do it.
And so when you give, let's say, a dog the freeze-dried, it knows right away this is the real thing, or
yes.
It looks at you and...
It does. What we found is that the dogs that eat this way seem to be more satiated and satisfied, and they enjoy the food more. I think that every dog is different, and I'm always I'm the first one to say, like, do your own research, try different diets, find what your dog really likes, but these generally are highly palatable, especially the freeze-dried is highly palatable. I think it's because the moisture is removed, so the smell is so intensified, and because these diets are all natural, we don't do things like add chicken fat or things for false sort of appetite enhancements. Like, this is the real thing.
Okay. Where do people get Stella and Chewy's?
Stella and Chewy's is available nationwide, and we're in about 3,000 retail stores right now across the U.S. So we have and we're also, you can buy the freeze-dried on the internet. There's a couple of internet sites that sell it. We don't sell it ourselves via the internet, but we have a store locator on our website.
And what's your website?
www.stellaandcheweys.com. So it's STELLAANDCHEWYS.com. And Stella and Chewy are both rescue dogs. I understand that you do a lot with rescue.
Right. And I heard that's how you actually got started in this business.
That's correct. I rescued Stella and Chewy was very sick. And I started doing a lot of research about pet food. And at the time, this kind of diet really wasn't available. So I would end up having to do it in my kitchen.
And I understand that the condition, they were really quite sick.
It was Chewy that was sick. He had distemper as an adult, and his immune system was really compromised. So luckily I had a vet that was a little bit more progressive and understood the importance of nutrition. So he's the one that really recommended I be very, very aware of what I feed the dog.
And what did proper nutrition do for Chewy?
It cured him 100%.
Amazing 100%. Story.
Yes, it was amazing to experience, actually.
Okay. Thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you.